call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. I'd like everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. So, first agenda items kind of run together. We're going to do the 2019 year-to-date general fund review for expenses and revenue. We're going to start with revenues. Folks, I have given you with your agenda this page right here. I took time to go through everything. I want to go piece by piece, Micah. There's going to be some things that we're going to have questions on. Some things we're just going through. I want to know if these are my observations. If you're hearing something that isn't right, stop it. Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Public comment. Anybody from the public want to address the committee?
Yeah. Is that first or first? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
David Nay, 187 Center Street. I just have a question regarding our budget for 2019, and with regard to how much unbudgeted monies have we spent, or are we projected to spend for 2019? Thank you.
Kathy Paisley, 401 Hillcrest Avenue. I'm coming once again before finance because I truly believe that, council is not only just sit here and, do happy things and cut ribbons. It's legislative, and legislative means, little revenue generating things for our area. I brought this before, it doesn't seem anybody's moving forward. So I want to put it back on that in light of possible developments relating to anything going forward in Morrisville, ever since there's been a hotel in Morrisville, I've always wanted a hotel tax. And if it's against your budget and your code and all that other stuff, then I expect to go and change legislatively. That's why we belong to a boroughs association. And I would like to see that enacted on and started to go somewhere. We should be collecting something. We've had a hotel since day one. So let's legislate, let's move it on, and let's open up another source of revenue. I mean, we opened it up when I found that, the cable money that we were leaving sitting on the table. If it's a law, go back and change it. That's not why you belong to a boroughs association, that you don't go and bring legislation to go change borough code. Thank you.
All right, this time we will close public comment. All right, so as I was saying, we're going to go through for 2019, we're going to be reviewing and talking about some of the highlights. The close of August marks the 66% point of the year. That said, not all revenues and expenses amortize evenly monthly throughout the course of the year. The following is highlights and deficiencies year-to-date for 2019 in preparation of the 2020 budget. So in revenues, overall, we're at 88.5% in revenues year-to-date. Now, that seems like we're ahead of pace because we should be at 66% of the month, or of the year, I'm sorry. However, about 97.5% of our real estate taxes are in at this point.
The 88.5%, where are you pulling that from? Because if you look at total revenues on August, it says 83.46.
That's
That's all revenues.
That's not all revenues.
Okay, so total revenues, okay.
Yeah. So it's the 88.5%. Again, even at 83%, we're still looking like we're ahead of pace. However, 97.5% of our property taxes, our real estate taxes are in on it. And I don't expect that to change much. We might see a little bit more for September, but I can't imagine we're going to see much more than maybe 98% total collected. Yeah. Right. Any concerns there? Okay. So we're on the same page there. Prior real estate tax collections is at 104.8%, 57.6%. I'm sorry, $57.6 thousand. It's performing better than expected already. for next year, because we need to get a little better at this, right? Because if we're gonna do maybe 115%, 120% of goal, that's a little high, right?
Well, it's a conservative number because
It
we have
is.
a third party doing it.
It
It
is.
is Portnoy. And we don't know, we'd rather be pleasantly surprised than horribly wrong.
So I agree with you
Let me
to
just-
some extent. Go ahead.
Portnoy does the sanitation back fees, not taxes, is that the county?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, that is the county.
Okay, so unless we were to hire Portnoy to get them faster and sooner.
No,
It's out
I'm
of-
sorry,
it's
you're
out
wrong,
of our
sanitation
hands.
is Portnoy.
So,
The Bucks County, the county collects it and then sends us the money.
so what I would like to see for the committee and for council, for the purpose of being able to project this better for 2020, is what's the exposure? How much does the county have? What's their current liquidation rate, so we can have a better idea? And a projection of how much more, since we're already at 97.5%, we're not going to be adding a whole lot more to that, right? Because people are paying their property taxes.
Yeah,
So-
and then the reason I think it's high is because there's been a lot of house sales.
Sales, yeah, and
So,
it gets collected. I would agree with that. And we're going to talk about that
I
because
think we're still getting money in, but not at the levels that has come in the last few
I'm
months.
sure, I wouldn't expect it to go too much higher, maybe another 10%. I mean, it's not a humongous number to begin with, so you're talking about $6,000 more maybe. So I can see it going up another 6% or so. But again, just to get closer, or I'm sorry, another 10% or so, just to get it closer to, so when we're budgeting, we know what we have to spend. But to your point, real estate transfer taxes are lower than expected. So when we're talking about sales, that's part of the sale of the house, right? So they're actually lower than expected at 54.6%. So they're not keeping the trend, and we may see a slight uptick in September, maybe a little bit more in October, but come November, you're going to see a downward spiral in December, unless we get some companies coming in buying houses to get the money off of their books. I don't think we'll see a whole lot of transfer tax happening. So, and this one's kind of a moving target, right? I am expecting to see this actually go up in September. I don't know how the housing market was right here, but interest rates plummeted and houses started selling left and right. So September may be a better outcome and may bump that number up a little bit, but just a point to keep in mind for next year. Traffic fund.
Before,
Yep, go
before
ahead.
we move on to that, do we want to go back another bullet point to the real estate tax collection? Do we want to consider Portnoy? Do we want to look into that as an option?
We
Take
did
what?
look into Portnoy collecting the back real estate taxes.
I had mentioned it last year and asked questions,
I
but
thought
didn't go anywhere.
the county charges less than Portnoy.
I think so.
Yeah.
Last I remember, we looked at it. I didn't look at it, I just read the report.
They may, but I think the county takes up to 3 years to get it back, and Portnoy may get it back for us quicker.
If you can look into that and let us know. Cost. But I would say if we're at 104% of our yearly goal for this, I think that they're doing all right for us right now. And if it's more expensive, if it's a more expensive option to get similar results, I probably wouldn't go with that. Yeah. Yeah.
But schools also join that with
Yep.
so it could be a joint thing.
Could be.
Another idea I just thought of is there a possibility, I don't know if it would do any good or not, maybe you could ask if anybody else does it locally, for the borough to send out some sort of notice, you know, besides the tax collector, you know, saying your taxes are overdue, and maybe getting a refresh to people's minds. May not do anything at all, maybe ignore just like them paying the taxes, but
Say that again.
some sort of letter either from the borough, you know.
If it's
Same.
already placed with an agency or someone else is already working it, there are laws that prohibit more than one entity from collecting the same day. So we'd have to look at that. I don't know that you could legally continue to provide notices when somebody else is actually also doing it.
When do we, I guess I'm saying for present year taxes, do they get turned over to the county at the end of the year?
That's the tax collector, I'm not sure.
And if they don't, maybe we send out some sort of reminder. I don't know if it's, would be feasible.
Present year taxes can be paid till the end of the year.
Through the end of the year.
Well, it's always better when we get them sooner.
That's up to the taxpayer.
Better for the borough government.
So traffic fines are tracking behind the year-to-date trend. This is expected. We eliminated the truck enforcement position. Year-to-date, we're at 39.3% or 32,749 on the year. On a budget of $55,042, leaving us off by about $22,300. But there was a month-over-month increase in these fines by $10,000. So if that trend continues, we should probably be right about where we expect to end for the year. So
At
there
the
was a,
55,000.
yeah, because there was a huge uptick from July to August. All of a sudden in August, we saw a $10,000 month-over-month increase in what we were
So
collecting
you're
in
including
fines.
the 10K into the 32?
That's part of the 32. So in 1 month, we did 1/3 of what we've totally done in fines. So there was some uptick in issuing in the month of August. Well, collecting, I should say, not necessarily issuing.
Micah, when we get payments from the state, do they send them,
They send them to the police department deposit.
Monthly,
Is it
quarterly?
regularly, or is it quarterly, or is it, do they hold on for 6
It's
months?
regularly, it's not quarterly.
Okay, so it's once a month, maybe every 6 weeks kind of thing?
It's not that long. It's
Okay.
about
It's not the
100
state,
places.
it's the district court
Okay,
that collects fines.
so it is a regular payment then?
It's not like tax payments, we're just sitting there and then they came with a big lump sum.
Well, somebody paid them that way?
Yeah, sometimes I get them, but usually I see at least 1 or 2 deposits from.
Fines from ordinances fines from ordinance violations are lower than expected year-to-date at 38%. We're at 8,700 on a budget of 15,000, leaving us off by about 6,500. With a month-over-month increase from July to August of $3,300. Are we issuing fines and just not getting them collected, or are we not issuing?
That's police, you have to ask
This is
them.
ordinances though. This would be,
That's police issue.
they're police issued? I thought they were, this would be for the code enforcement.
I believe that line is pretty much all police. There might be some code enforcement in there, but it's not significant.
Okay.
Code enforcement is building permits and street fees, it's all in one. It's 01362410.
Three, 6.
01362410. It's on page 3 of the financial.
So we don't break that out based on what the fines are,
No, we put them all together.
revenues.
Yes, we put it all on.
So even though it's ordinance violations, this is of policing. All right, overall sanitation fees, including recycling and prior year collections, is at 86.9%. Prior year collections is performing lower than expected, but the current year should see an additional uptick in September and October. So we're still seeing houses sold, and when we see houses sold, some of those prior years get brought up to date. I am expecting to see a little bit of an uptick in September, possibly October, because the interest rates are so low right now. So that's where I'm coming up with that, unless you guys are seeing something totally different. Okay. Building permit revenue is at 236.1%. Year-to-date.
Again, that's added together, so you need the 45 and 65. You want to get a true percentage.
Okay. Is there a reason why we aren't breaking those out?
I think we decided earlier in the year to put everything in one lump number to help better analyze the keystone.
So that's the UNO permits and everything? Okay, because that was going to be my next question, is where's the money for the UNO permits going? All right. So that's going to And the budget for UNOs was very low, right? Well, not really more than $2,000 for annual cost. Just get some fancy.
For what, expenditures?
I'm sorry, for revenues. That's not just revenues.
Revenues for you and others has 45,000.
So you're saying that's all rolling into the 153,000 that's under building permit, right? So we're still ahead of trend in both of those areas because at the end of the day, we're still way ahead. All right, fair enough. And a good portion of that goes to Keystone anyway because that's kind of deferring the cost of having Keystone. All right, you guys want to go in any deeper into revenues before we move on to expenses? Because I'm going to do a very high level on expenses, and then you guys can drill down to individual areas as well. So a couple of take-homes here on this is a breakdown on prior year collections. I would say for property tax prior year and for our sanitation, just going into 2020, I don't think you were here when we said this, Scott. Looking for like what's out to the agency, what we're forecasting to put more out to the agency in 2020, and what their current liquidation rate is, just to get a good idea of what the revenue should be.
Well, I think we give council a quarterly report
You do.
on the portfolio that's placed with them. And we only place with them now annually. It's whatever we give them in the beginning of the year that
It's
the
not gonna be
tax
much.
collector didn't collect in the tax year. So
It's not going to be much, so we're going to see a steep drop off in the revenues from those things.
Yeah,
So
plus
that's why I want to keep an eye on it, because I don't want to overshoot next year
plus, the more these accounts age, the harder it is to collect
until they sell.
unless there's real estate on it. So
All right. Anything else, guys, on that? All right. So for expenses, I'm going to go through a few things that are of interest, and this is all general fund related. At 66% of the year, for the general fund expenses overall, we're at 57.3%, which means we're controlling spending. Administrative expenses are at 64%, so they're pretty much spot on for the year to date, which the administrative expenses are going to be something that are a little more standard monthly, so it makes sense. Public property is at 36.3% overall. Police expenditures are at 57.6%, so that's good. Planning commission, we've only spent 8.5%, but that's a whole other area
well, plus there was only one big ticket item
Yes.
purchased, and we just got the first invoice on that.
Yep.
The comp plan update's going to run about $17,000.
so that'll bump up, but we're still
Yeah,
well
by the
within
end of the
threshold.
year, that'll all be spent.
Yep. Sanitation expenditures are at 58.7%. Streets at 100% because it was moved to capital reserve. Okay? You have a question about that?
Yeah, there's 60,000 that we capital,
It's a mill, I think.
1 mil, I think, so 43,000 of that actually goes to pay for our police cars.
Yeah,
40, I think.
I think it's 41 or 2.
Yeah.
One more year, right?
3 years.
We have next year's payment, next year will be the last year for that.
And
That's
then if
3
we
years.
get a buyout clause with that, if we wanted it.
Yeah.
Do we have to buy that?
It's going to be fair market value.
I think so.
I don't remember, I'd have to go back and look at the contract.
Did we sell off any of the
Usually the
old?
leases are fair market value, but the police cruisers have major upgrades. It's going to be fair market value on the base model. It should be at least. All right, shade tree at 0%. We haven't spent anything there. And water department's at 57.3%. So again, at a trend of 66% of the year being done, we're under in all categories overall for spending. Except for the streets that was moved to capital reserve for in part for the police cruisers. Does anybody have any individual areas they want to talk about in any of those categories?
I just have a general question. Do we have any large expenditures coming up?
Borough has a lot of fourth quarter expenditures, and we have a lot of fourth quarter expenditures that we don't pay until January, February of the new year. So, yes.
Anything else? And that's every year.
Yep.
That's not,
We're going to close out until at least, what, February?
February,
Well,
March.
it's usually like late February, early March.
After we get the audit.
Close the prior year.
Any individuals?
Well, everyone's thinking, Mike, I can get this like a day before, and I can tell you bring their stuff. And when you reference.
If I had it the day before, you would have.
Okay, the other thing I would request,
Sure.
when you talk about like accounts, instead of naming them, put the
numbers.
GL code,
Sure.
and that way it helps a
Yeah,
little
this,
bit.
this was more or less my notes.
No, and I appreciate everything you did, and I don't mind any questions, I'm just saying, because I'm like, look,
No, I
what is
get
that
it.
again?
I get it. Put you on the spot. I get it.
Yeah. That's just a friendly suggestion.
No, no problem. You get if I had it the day before, you would have. Next time, process. We're gonna move on to your piece. So these guys are gonna go nuts. I didn't go into any of the static accounts, the library fund, all of them are in.
I looked at them and their expenditures and the
Right where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, because some of them are in and out of account, so they
That's
do
okay.
their recreation fund, all that.
Yep.
Right now, it's just trending on the meeting.
Dan fund, didn't bother to go through any of these, these are all
Yeah, I don't
static.
think.
Unless you guys want to talk about it individually.
All the funds are pretty well.
Yep.
I mean,
The CAN fund, Mike will usually use it by the fourth quarter when we get the expenditures the first quarter. So that will be used and then we paid in May, like we usually do.
Yeah, but it's in there, yeah.
It's there, though. Anything else, guys?
Could you guys speak up? I don't think you're right.
They aren't for committee meetings. Anything else you guys have?
I mean, all the funds look, I mean, they're all at a decent percentage right now. I mean, obviously, it's only because it's August, so percentages will go up. But, I mean, as far as the revenues and expenses for them all, I mean, I think they look doing okay.
All right, let's move on. Third item. Thank you for putting this together, sir. You want to walk us through it?
At the top portion is the analysis that we had from PFM on certain borrowing options that we could have had. I believe this was in your packet as well.
Who wants to go?
Yes, so I just figured out what they gave us, and basically all this analysis was done on an A rating.
But do we know that that's our rating?
That's what they researched and said it was at
Really?
this time, yes.
Okay, good.
Nice.
Moving to.
Okay.
That's what I believe Zach told us.
All right,
What are the
so,
possible options for ratings?
oh, it could be AAA, which we are single A, I would imagine.
Jason, I think it was
You can keep that going.
All right, so
Would you like to see it?
So would this committee want to make any recommendations to council for infrastructure for Borough? It's an idea, it depends on what we use it for. I don't don't think that $10 million makes sense. I don't think we can afford that. But if we're looking to do something substantial, and specifically road-based, it could be something that Liquid Fuels covers yearly. But it would have to be something that Liquid Fuels can afford.
None of these.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Because when you're talking $300,000 a month, even at the low end, or $300,000 a year, right? What do we get, like 270 or something, 260? 240 now? Okay.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with PFM, but they're kind of like the EF Hutton of government borrowing. They do, the county, municipalities, boroughs, townships, even the school district here. So we consulted with them on a number of options, but all the options were bad and cost prohibitive, and annual liquid fuels allocation we get would be exhausted or would not be enough to cover. So we're not making any recommendation to you at this time. We're just letting you know that we explored some options.
Yep, we wanted to put it out there, so, and look at it ourselves.
We even contemplated possibly rolling existing debt, refinancing existing debt as part of a package, but that didn't work out.
But how would that even work then? Because if you're taking the infrastructure JCI loan and putting it into a new loan,
You can't use liquid fuels to pay for any of that. It has to be segregated.
Yeah.
So.
So it have to be, you just have to refinance that debt and get other debt service. So.
Quick question, does anybody know what the existing debt is?
Yes.
973,000, is that right? Is the current balance? It's at 2.99%. It was a 15-year term loan.
So we just pay this time to try and review that together.
Well, when I first came here last year, I had talked to TD and PNC about refinancing it, and with rates where they were at that time, they didn't recommend it. None of them come close to 2.99, and we considered that with PFM as part of options this time, but it still doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah. We even had them look at two scenarios. One would be another term loan, and one would be a bond issue. But the market right now, actually the pricing for both of those options is pretty similar, but a bond issue is much more expensive to do. So we considered another term loan and either doing a separate standalone term loan for expedited road paving or rolling this existing debt into a new term loan. But we're not there yet. We're nowhere near close to being able to recommend a solution to the committee or to full council. So.
Okay.
Basically, with our roads, we're just gonna keep plugging along and.
We're going to keep chugging along for a while and do the best we can.
Partner with PennDOT and partner with the MMA.
All right.
So if I'm reading this right, option one for $5 million, 15-year amortization is roughly $400,000 to change a year. And for double that, $10 million for 15 years, $830,000.
Yep.
Well, that's close enough.
All right.
So just
Go ahead.
doing some calculations. So if we had the millage available to do roughly 7 mils
It's about 7 mils.
for the low end.
You can't afford it.
Okay. Well, any other questions? All right. Anybody have anything else they want to bring up? Motion closed. All right.
The second part of the
Anything
packet is that,
else?
what you're looking at now is the second part is the actual contract, the 1 point, yes, 1.25, and at the end of that is the last bill we paid showing our balance.
And this is for JCI.
Yes.
pay. So that's what we still owe at the end?
Yes. And then the last one that you're looking at is just a total history, from when it started to last month.
Oh,
Why doesn't it seem like so much has been paid?
It
That
has.
balance.
Yeah, because you do an interest payment every
I know.
month and then a principal payment once a year.
Once a year, yeah. That's because of your safety.
The bank always gives their money first.
yep.
Yes. And the interest up front.
I mean, it's been paying it so long. 2014, right? JCI was done 2014? And to have that much money left, still owed?
Yeah.
The principal is paid, I believe, every March, April. So you'll see that move in March. And everything else.
So the loan's gonna last longer than we put in, basically. There you
So
go.
basically, 2031 is what we're looking at?
I thought it was 2034.
Well, 2034, it shows no principal and no interest. So it looks like 2031, you'll have your last principal payment to this.
You pay them separate for the analysis they do every year, right? That's separate, you
Pay
pay.
them separate for that.
Out of the general fund for that.
Yes, the way you're reading is the way I
Money
understand
for
it.
upkeep and anything that breaks.
Well, we have the contract for servicing through them, right? On certain things, the heater, the HVAC system is through them. We did a contract with them.
That's extra, right?
That is,
Oh, yeah, that's all extra.
Plus the
That's
analysis.
maintenance costs.
Yeah. Besides the analysis they give every year, it's like the savings is.
Yep, which you guys get a copy of. I
Yep.
think it's about every spring. They give us the prior year.
What is our, do we know our savings so far year to date?
It was about $2,000 a year.
Yeah.
It's low.
It's,
yeah. Don't laugh.
pages. It's paper.
Yes. Plus the small.
Scott, has Kurt or Laura ever mentioned the percentage of savings we gain when we do the roads, when we bolt them together close, so there's not multiple mobilization costs?
Not this year when we discussed it with council, but I think when he and Laura discussed it with council last year, I think he talked about today's dollars versus tomorrow's dollars and cost, and saving on mobilization and things like that. But, and I think there was some sort of analysis he gave out at that time, but this was probably a year and a half ago. I don't remember.
Yeah, they came in and gave a whole presentation on it.
Yeah. I mean, plus, in terms of internal operating efficiencies, I mean, the less time we have public works spending chasing around after potholes, the more time they have to spend on more important functions. But unfortunately, we've got the roads in the third world country. So,
Plus the amount of the materials for use. That's whole package.
I mean, we would never be able to get out of the pothole business completely, but it would be dramatic.
So I remember last year, I think you had mentioned that we were going to try a different type of coal patch or a different type of patch. How did that work out?
We did, that was through the consortium, because we buy that through the Bucks County Consortium, and it is different material, and I think a different vendor too, and it worked out much better. In fact, I think you and I had a conversation about this sometime.
I got you a free sample, didn't I?
We didn't use that.
Was that the one you brought
But
back?
yeah, it worked out much better than what they were using before,
Okay, good.
much more durable.
Okay, good.
But I'm just thinking on a smaller scale, if we can't afford 5 million, if we do, 750,000 or a million, and bolt more streets together, we might.
Well, you spent
Achieve savings.
over $300,000 this year to do what? Portions of 3 or 4 streets. None of them was even the entirety of the street, except Union Street out here, which is a shortage.
Anything impactful.
So I mean, $700,000 to double that, you're not going to get very far.
Anyway, I'm thinking, bundle 3 or 4 years worth of stuff together to get more done with the same money.
Yeah. Well, we've got a list of I think, 5 hard targets for next season, and a list of 5 or 6 the season after, and then, Public Works has a whole road inventory beyond that, where we've done assessments of condition. But we're gonna do the best we can with the liquid fuels allocation, unless council wants to allocate more money for road repaving.
That's possible. I don't know where you pull it from.
Anything else?
Now, the MMA, they had that 10-year program, they were doing their pipe replacement. So we've been following some of that. So is any of our roads that are on that list, the worst ones coming up within, so they're going to be doing also?
Well, the only one they did this year under that program was Center Street, across the street here. It's going to get done. Osborne, I think, is on their list next because they've got to excavate like 2/3 of Osborne for pipe replacement. So John Orenda told me not to worry about either of those two, that the MMA would take care of those. But we've got 5 or 6 a year that need to be done badly aside from those.
Is Palmer included on that? East Palmer, in Center Street? That short stretch?
That's a good question, I'm not sure.
I noticed some patching, and when I came here tonight, I noticed the center of the street was starting to concave.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll just shoot John an email, make him aware of that.
Ask him. Yeah, actually, he's doing that whole project with a grant.
Okay.
I don't think he can do the road paving with a grant, I think the MMA is actually paying for the road paving. But the rest of it is being done with a grant.
Madam President?
I don't know if there's
Numbers are pretty trendy. Thought they'd be.
are we gonna have another meeting? That'll just be our.
Yeah, which we're gonna get, we're gonna get your actuals too from the account. So the actuals too.
For the military.
Sometime at the end of October, depends. You'll get something.
Try this
Yeah,
again.
the numbers posted.
Motion closed.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.